Case 33. Dr. N, you have said that Roy is one of the members of your family in this life who is in your soul group. When you look at Roy's focal point of energy, what do you see? S. I see a concentration of pinkish yellow coming from the middle of his body form at the place where the solar plexus would be. Dr. N. What body form? Why is Roy presenting a physical body to your group? S. We showed the features of the bodies we have occupied that pleased us in life. Dr. N. Well, what does an energy concentration from the stomach area mean to you? S. Roy's strongest point of personal power in his lives is his gut, regardless of his body. He has nerves of steel, laughs, he has other appetites in this area, too. Dr. N. If Roy's metabolic energy rate shows that attribute, can you pinpoint the distribution of extra light energy coming from certain places of the body and other members of your group? S. Yes, Larry has his greatest development from his head. He has been a creative thinker in many lives. Dr. N. Anyone else? S. Yes, Natalie. Her power essence is developing faster from the heart area because of her compassion. Dr. N. How about yourself? S. Mine comes from the throat, because of my communication skills, through speech in some lives and singing in my current life. Dr. N. Do these energy points have anything to do with the projection of human color auras? S. As far as color, not generally. As far as strengths in energy concentration, yes. Spiritual meditation using color. The healing properties of multicolored lights for energy rebalancing in a recovery area were quoted in the last chapter from a soul called Banyan. People who have read my work about the spirit world have asked if this sort of information about color can be useful for physical healing. Spiritual meditation as a means of getting in touch with our inner self is of great benefit in healing the body. There are many good self-help books on the market which explain the various forms of meditation. Since color transmission is the expression of the soul's energy and that of our guides, perhaps I ought to cite one example of meditation using color. The 6-step meditative exercise I have chosen comes from a mixture of my own suggested visualizations and those of a courageous 54-year-old woman I worked with whose weight dropped to 69 pounds during her fight with ovarian cancer. She is now in remission after chemotherapy, and the speed of her recovery baffled doctors. A number of my clients generate a sense of spiritual empowerment by the use of meditation with colors. Those who have severe physical health problems tell me the best results come from meditating once a day for 30 minutes or twice a day for 15 to 20 minutes. Please know I do not offer these steps of meditation as a cure for physical ailments. The power of each person's mind and their ability to concentrate is different, just as is the nature of their illness. Nevertheless, I do feel one's immune system can be boosted by connecting with our higher self. 1. Begin by calming your mind. Forgive people for all the real and imagined wrongs that have hurt you. Spend 5 minutes cleansing, where you visualize all negative thought energy, including fears about your illness, say as a black color. Think of a vacuum cleaner moving from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, sucking up and pushing out of your body all the darkness from the pain and hurt of your disease. 2. Now, create a light blue halo above your head that represents your spirit guide, whom you call upon for help while sending out loving thoughts. Then spend another 5 minutes concentrating on your breathing while counting the breaths. Measure your breaths carefully while thinking comfort in and tightness out. You want to harmonize your breathing with the rhythm of the body. 3. At this point, start to think of your own higher consciousness as an expanding white gold balloon to help protect your body. Say in your mind, I want that part of me which is immortal to defend the mortal. Now begin your deepest concentration. You will pull the purity of white light from the balloon and send it as a power beam into your body organs. Since your white blood cells represent the strength of your immune system, visualize them as bubbles and move them around your body. Think of the white bubbles as attacking the black cancer cells and dissolving them with the power of light over darkness. 4. If you are receiving chemotherapy, support this treatment by sending out a lavender color as you would see from an infrared heat lamp to all parts of your body. This is the divine color of wisdom and spiritual power. 5. Now, send out the color green for healing these damaged cells from the effects of the cancer. You might blend this color with the blue of your spiritual guide intermittently during the most difficult periods. Pick your own shade and think of the green as a flowing liquid mending your insides. 6. Your last step is to once again create the blue halo of light around your head to sustain mental strength and courage over a weakened body. Expand it around the external parts of your body as a shield. Feel the healing power of this light of love both inside and outside. Think of yourself in a state of suspension and close by repeating a mantra such as heal, heal, heal. Meditation as a daily discipline is hard work which pays big dividends. There is no right way to meditate. Each person must find a program which links their intellectual and emotional systems in a framework that suits their needs. Deep meditation brings us into our divine consciousness and a temporary release of the soul from personality. With this liberation one is able to transcend into a different, non-dimensional reality where everything in the focus mind is unified into a single whole. The woman with ovarian cancer was able to help her doctors by bringing total mental concentration to bear on healing her body. When the mind is in a pure, centered state, we can find who we really are. That essence we may have lost somewhere along the road of life. Daily meditation is also beneficial as a means of connecting with the presence of loving spirits. Forms of energy color. Besides the effects of color, another external means of investigating souls in groups is to compare their shapes. These energy forms would include symmetry versus irregularity of shape, brightness or dimness of light configurations, and the qualities of motion, all of which provide spiritual signatures of the group members. When observing other souls, many people in a trance state are aware of a soul's vibrational resonance. After I review the nuances of color tone with a client, together we will study the pulsation and vibrational rates of motion of their soul companions. In discussing the energy form of any soul, my first question is, how much energy was left behind in the spirit world before the current incarnation? This question has much to do with the activity or passivity of the soul and relates to brightness and dimness of energy. Despite the amounts of energy, however, all manner of energy generation is identified by character, capacity and mood of the soul. These are variables that can change after a series or lives. During my pre-hypnosis intake interview with a new client, I inquire about the cast of characters in their current life. I make notes about all their relatives, friends and past loves as well. This is because I will have a front row seat in the play that is about to unfold from their minds. And I want a theatre program. My client will be the leading actor in this drama, with others in supporting roles. In the case excerpt which follows, it can be seen how quickly information is gained through questions involving both color and form about a supporting cast member within a client's soul group. During my intake interview with Leslie, my client, I learned of her sister-in-law, named Rowena, who was a real thorn in her side. Leslie, whose spiritual name is Sosius, described herself as someone who seeks security in her lives and tends to be around peaceful people. In her current life, this subject remarked, Rowena seems to enjoy confronting me and challenging all my convictions. What follows is the opening scene of Leslie's mental picture of her spirit group. Case 34. Very upset. Oh, I don't believe it. Rowena is her or rather it's Shatha, that's Rowena. Dr. N, what's wrong with seeing the soul of Rowena in your spirit group? Frowning, with a tightening of the mouth. Well, Shath is one of the disruptive ones. Dr. N, disruptive in what way? Compared to those of us who have smooth, unruffled energy, vibrations. Dr. N, Sosius, as you observe your sister-in-law, how is she different in terms of color and shape? Still verifying the recognition of Rowena, there she is, all right. Her orange energy is pulsating rapidly at the usual sharp, jagged edge. That's Shath. Spark Sav, that's what we call her. Dr. N, does the form she presents to you indicate she is as antagonistic to you here in this spiritual setting as in your current life? Leslie is now adjusting to Rowena's presence and her voice softens. No. Actually, she draws us out. She is good for our group. I can see that. Dr. N, I want to consider how her projections are different from your own energy in color and form. What can you tell me about yourself in the spirit world? Mine is soft white with rose variations. One am called bells by my friends because they see my energy as fluid droplets of steady rainwater which give off an echo of faint tinkling bells. Shath has a sharp clarity to her energy and dissect tints of gold. Her energy is bright and very overpowering. Dr. N, and what does all this mean to you and your group? We just can't be complacent around Sparks. She is so restless, sire. Swirl of constant motion. Now there are always questions from her and challenges about our performance. She enjoys taking parts in our lives which shake our complacency. Dr. N, do you think she is less abrasive in the spirit world than in her current body as Rowena? Laughs, you bet. She chose a high-strung body with a short fuse, which amplifies everything. This time, current life, she came as my husband's sister. Shath can be so annoying, but now that I see who she really is, I know her motives come from love and wanting the best we have to give. Laughs again. We help her to slow down, too, because she has a tendency to jump into fires without looking. Dr. N, Is there anyone in your inner circle of friends whose energy is similar to Shafat or Rowena? S. grins. Yes, that would be my best friend McGann's husband, Roger. His name here is Seer. Dr. N. How does his energy appear to you? S. He sends out geometric, angular patterns that zigzag back and forth. They are sharp waves like his tongue, and from a distance his energy reverberates like crashing cymbals in an orchestra. Seer is a daring, intrepid soul. Dr. N. Based on what you have been telling me about energy shapes, could Shafan, Seer, Rowena and Roger have a compatible match-up in life? S. bursts out laughing. You must be joking. They would kill each other. No, Rowena's husband is Sina, my brother by a peaceful soul. Dr. N. Please describe his energy. S. He has a grounded energy which is greenish-brown. You know, vines is around when you hear a gentle swishing. Dr. N. Vines? I don't understand what that means. S. In our group when you get a nickname, it sticks. Sun has vibrational waves which look like a vine, with the patterns forming braided strands, wires with long hair. Dr. N. Does this energy pattern identify Sina, your brother by in some way? S. Sure. Complex but constant, very dependable. It reflects his ability to weave a variety of elements together in lovely harmony. Vines and sparks blend beautifully because Rowena never lets Bill get too complacent, and he gives her an anchor in life. Dr. N. Before I go on, I have noticed that the spirit names you have given for your soul group all start with the letter S. Does that mean anything? I'm not sure I am even spelling them correctly. S. Don't worry about theta, it is the sound which gives off the intonations of their energy motion that reflects who my friends really are. Dr. N. Sound? So besides the color and form of your group's energy, their waves have sound linked to each of them as we might hear on Earth? S. Well, sort of. With us, it's energy resonance we identify with Earth, although you could not hear these vibrations with a human ear. Dr. N. Could we go back to your best friend, McGann? You mentioned her, but I don't know her vibrational pattern color. S. With a warm smile, her wispy pale yellow energy is like flickering sunlight on a field of grain. Smooth, even and delicate. Dr. N. And her character as a soul. S. Absolute unconditional compassion and love. Before going further with the issue of sound and the similarity of some spiritual names, I should explain the karmic link between my client, Leslie, and her best friend in this life, McGann. To me it is an emotionally compelling story. During my intake with Case 34, Leslie explained to me that she was a professional singer and that occasionally her throat and larynx were especially tender. I regarded this as simply an occupational hazard and thought no more about it until we reached the death scene in her past life. It was then necessary to deprogram a former body imprint directly related to Leslie's throat. In their past life, McGann was Leslie's younger sister. As a young girl, McGann had been forced by her father to marry a wealthy, brutal, older man called Hogger, who beat and sexually abused her. After a short while, Leslie helped McGann escape from Hogger in order to run away with a young man who loved her, Roger. An enraged Hogger found Leslie that night and dragged her to a secluded place where he raped and beat her for hours to learn the whereabouts of her sister. Leslie told Hogger nothing until he began to strangle her for information. She then bought her sister more time to get away safely by giving Hogger the wrong directions. Hogger strangled Leslie to death and rushed away, but he never found McGann again. Later in our session, Leslie had this to say: "Singing in this life is an expression of love. Because my voice was silenced over love in the last life. Sounds and spiritual names. We have seen how color, form, movement and sound are individual markers of souls in their groups. These four elements appear to be interrelated, although light energy, vibrational shapes and their wave movement, as well as the resonance of sound, are not uniform among soul group members. However, there are resemblances with these elements between certain souls, and sound can be the one most obvious to the spiritual regressionist. There is a language to sound in the spirit world that goes beyond the systemization of spoken language. I am told laughing, humming, chanting and singing exist, as do the sounds of wind and rain, but they are indescribable. Some subjects pronounce the names of souls within their group as if they were balancing musical chords in order to harmonize them with each other. Case 34 is an example of how the pronunciation of spiritual names within an inner circle of friends has an affinity of sound with the letter S. In case 28, two spiritual teachers were called Ben and Relen. There seems to be rhythmic interplay between certain soul energies in a cluster group manifested in this way. Some hypnosis subjects have difficulty in producing spiritual names. These subjects say the names of souls in their minds consist of a vibrational resonance which is impossible to translate. It gets more complicated. One client stated, "In my experience, our real soul names are something similar to emotions, but they are not the emotions of humans. So I can't reproduce our names by any sound." There is also vocal symbolism connected to names, which may have hidden meanings that a client is unable to decipher in human form. Nevertheless, for many clients who are struggling to remember a spiritual name, the use of phonics and a cadence of sound may serve them well. A subject might use vowel sounds to characterize members of their cluster group. I had a client who named 3 souls in his group as Ki, Lo and Su. It is not at all uncommon for me to have cases, such as the last one, where group names emphasize one letter of the alphabet. For some reason, many spiritual guides have an ending to their names. I do have subjects in trance who find it easier to spell spiritual names for me rather than try to pronounce them. Yet these same clients will state that the spelling doesn't mean as much to them as the sound. My probes of spiritual names can also elicit shortened versions of the actual name. One client said, "In my spirit group, the nickname for our guide is Ned." Not satisfied with this, I persisted and eventually had this guide's full name down on paper. The result was Ned Arranged by Arian. I got the message. During the rest of this session we stayed with Ned. Privacy is also a factor when I have a client who feels that giving me the name of the spirit guide would somehow compromise that relationship. I must respect their concerns and be patient. As the session progresses, this uneasiness might wear off. For instance, a client told me her guide was called Mary. Then she added, "Mary is letting me call her by that name in front of you." I accepted this and we continued on for a while when, abruptly, the guide's name became Mazurkia. There are moments in a regression when it is not appropriate to push too hard for information. Finally, I should report that our own soul names can change a little as we evolve. I had one highly advanced subject tell me her name as a young soul was Vina, which had now changed to Kavina. I asked why, and Kavina replied that she was now a disciple of a senior guide called Karafina. When I inquired as to the significance of the similar phrasing of these names in the spirit world, I was told it was none of my concern. There are clients who have no reticence in closing down questions in a hurry if they feel I have stepped over the line of privacy. Soul study groups. In my first book, one devoted whole chapters to examining beginner, intermediate and advanced groups of souls and their guides. I also gave case examples of group energy training where souls learn to create and shape physical matter such as rocks, soil, plants and lower life forms. It is not my intention to repeat myself on these topics except when, by doing so, I can further the reader's knowledge of other aspects of life in soul collectives. In this section I am going to examine the relationships between learners within soul study groups as opposed to the structural aspects of schoolhouses and classrooms reviewed earlier in this chapter. Spiritual learning centers are not necessarily visualized by my clients as having a classroom or library atmosphere. Quite often these centers are described as simply the space of our home. Even so, the pictures of spiritual learning environments can change rapidly in the minds of clients discussing their instruction periods. When my research into our life between lives was published, some people were critical of my analogies of human schoolhouses and classrooms as spiritual models for the instruction of souls. One Colorado couple wrote me to say, "We find your references to schools in the afterlife to be distasteful, and this is probably due to your own bias as a former educator. Others have told me that for them schools were a long series of bad experiences with bureaucracy, authoritarianism and personal humiliation at the hands of other students. They did not want to see anything resembling human classrooms on the other side." I know there are readers who have had bitter memories of the time they spent in school. Sadly, schools on earth, as with other institutions, contain shortcomings wrought by human beings. Teachers and students can be guilty of arrogance, petty tyranny and indifference to the sensitivities of others. Wherever learning takes place, there is scrutiny. Nevertheless, many of us remember having caring teachers who gave us essential information while we formed lifelong friendships with fellow students as well. The functional aspects of acquiring spiritual knowledge are translated by the human mind into learning centers, and I am sure our guides have a hand in creating visualizations of earthly edifices for souls who come to our planet. People in hypnosis talk about the similarities of form and structure to Earth in some respects, but there are great differences in other aspects of their reports. My clients tell me about the overwhelming kindness, benevolence and infinite patience of everyone in ethereal study areas. Even the analysis of each soul's performance by fellow students is conducted with total love, respect and a mutual commitment to make things better in the next incarnation. Soul groups appreciate individualism. It is expected that you will stand out and make contributions. There are forceful souls and quiet souls, but no one dominates, just as no one is obtrusive. Individualism is appreciated because each soul is unique, with strengths and weaknesses that complement others in the group. We are assigned to certain soul groups for our differences as well as similarities. These differences in character are honored because souls who share their lives bring a rich personal wisdom to every lifetime experience. Souls love to tease and use humor in their groups, but always they show respect for one another, even with those who have been in bodies that have hurt them in life. More than forgiveness, souls exercise tolerance. They know that most negative personality traits connected to the ego of the body of the person who brought them sadness and heartache were buried when that body died. At the top of the discarded list of negative emotions are anger and fear. Souls volunteer both to teach and learn certain lessons, and karmic plans may not always work out in the way they were intended, given the variables of earthly environments. One remember after one of my lectures, a psychiatrist raised his hand and said, "Your discussion about soul groups reminds me of tribalism." I responded that soul groups do appear to be tribal in their intense loyalty and mutual support for each other in a spiritual community. However, soul groups are not tribal in their relationships toward other groups. Earth societies have a nasty habit of mistrusting one another at best and demonstrating bitterness and cruelty at worst. Societies in the spirit world are inclined to be rigorous, moderate, or compliant in their interpersonal relationships, but I see no evidence of discrimination or alienation either within or between soul groups. Unlike human beings, all spiritual beings are bonded together. At the same time, souls strictly observe the sanctity of other groups. When I was a part-time evening college teacher, I found that some of my students, including the adults in my classes, would confuse facts with their own value patterns. While struggling with conceptual problems, there were times when they argued from a false premise and even contradicted themselves. This, after all, is the nature of students. Eventually, they learned to extrapolate and synthesize ideas more effectively. From this background, my introduction to instruction in the spirit world gave me perspective. During the early years of my hypnosis research, I was astounded by the total lack of self-deception in spiritual classrooms. I saw that teacher guides seemed to be present everywhere, although not always in a manifested form. Our teachers come and go in spiritual study sessions, but never interfere with self-discovery. Although souls themselves are not yet omniscient, by having infinite knowledge of all things, they have no doubts about karmic lessons and the part they played in past life events. An axiom of the spirit world is that souls are always hardest on themselves in terms of performance. Within soul study groups there is a wondrous clarity of rational thought. Self-delusion does not exist, but I must say that the motivation to work hard in every life is not uniform among all souls. I have had clients tell me, "I'm going to skate for a while." This can mean slowing down their rate of incarnations, picking easy incarnations, or both. Although the soul's teachers and counsel may not be happy with this decision, it is respected. Even within the spirit world, some students choose not to give their best at all times. I believe they are a distinct minority of earth-born souls. To the Greeks the word persona was synonymous with mask. This is an appropriate term for the way in which the soul utilizes a host body for any life. When we reincarnate into a new body, the soul's character is united with the temperament of its host to form one persona. The body is the outward manifestation of the soul, but it is not the total embodiment of our soul self. Souls who come to earth think of themselves as becoming masked actors on a world stage. In Shakespeare's Macbeth, the king prepares for death by telling us, "Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more." In some ways this famous line describes how souls feel about their lives on earth, the difference being that once the play has begun, most of us don't know we are in a play until it's over, due to a variety of amnesiac blocks. Thus the analogy of a play, like that of a schoolroom, befits what my clients see in a deep hypnotic trance state. I have had clients tell me that when they return to their soul groups after a particularly hard life, there is clapping and shouts of "Bravo!" from their friends. The applause is for a job well done at the end of the last act of the play of life. One subject said, "In my group the major cast members of our last play in life will go off in a corner to study the individual scenes we played after it has ended and before rehearsals begin for the next play to come." I often hear my subjects laugh about being offered a certain part in the next play, which is their current life hour, and the debates that took place before final casting decisions were made as to who would play what part in the future. Our guides become stage directors who go over past life scenes with us, frame by frame, of both good and bad times. Errors in judgment are presented in small bites. All possible outcomes are studied and compared. By designing new scripts for these scenes with different sets of choices that could have been made in each circumstance, behavioral patterns are minutely dissected with each player, followed by a review of all the roles in the script. Souls might then decide to switch roles with each other and replay key scenes all over again to test the results with a different actor from their group or by someone recruited from a nearby group. I encourage my subjects to tell me about these role substitutions. Souls gain perspective from being witnesses to their own past performance through other actors. Recreations of past life alternatives present the psychodrama one find useful as a therapeutic tool in a soul's current life. These stage analogies by soul groups do not trivialize what they go through on earth as simple impersonations. They offer the soul an objective means of comprehension and foster a desire to improve. The system is ingenious. Souls never seem to get bored in these educational exercises, which invite creativity, originality, and a desire to triumph over adversity by acquiring wisdom from human relationships. Always, they want to do better next time. Whatever the format, spaces of learning provide a fascinating chessboard for souls when they go over all the possible moves for the best solutions after the game is over. Indeed, some of my subjects call the whole process of reincarnation the game. The outcome of one's performance in the play may range from very satisfactory to acceptable to unsatisfactory. I realize some readers might conclude this sounds suspiciously like educational grading on earth, but this is not an idea of my origination. I'm told that in soul groups, the evaluation of performance by our peers is not threatening, rather, it encourages motivation. Most souls appear to me to be driven by a desire to review the last game of life they have played in order to Better preview the next one. Like champion athletes, they want to try and improve with each performance. Ultimately, they know at a certain level of development and proficiency this aspect of the game will end with the closing of the play in their physical incarnations. This is the goal of souls who come to Earth. As I stated at the beginning of this section, instruction in learning centers is not limited to reviewing past lives. Besides all the other activities, energy manipulation is a major part of training. The acquiring of these skills takes many forms in classroom work. I have said before that humor is a hallmark of the spirit world. The student in the next case gives us a sense of the whimsical when she explains how one of her creation classes got a little out of hand. Case 35. Dr. N, you have explained about how your group has gathered into an enclosure resembling a school classroom, but I'm not sure what is going on here. We have gathered for practicing creation training with our energy. My guide, Trinity, is standing at a chalkboard working on a drawing for us to study. Dr. N, and what are you doing now? Sitting at my desk with the others are watching Trinity. Dr. N, give me a picture of this. Are you lined up in a row with the others at a long desk, or what? No, we have our individual desks and they have tops which open up. Dr. N, where are you sitting in relation to your friends? I am off to the left. Karel, the mischievous one, my subject's brother, in her current life, is next to me. Jack, subject's current husband, is just in back of me. Dr. N, what is the mood in this room right now? Laid back and very relaxed, because this assignment is so easy it's almost boring, watching Trinity drawing. Dr. N, oh, really? What is Trinity drawing? He is drawing how to make a mouse quickly from different energy parts. Dr. N, are you going to break up into groups to combine your energy with others for this assignment? With a wave of her hand, oh, no. We are way past that. We will be tested individually. Dr. N, please explain the test. We are to rapidly visualize a mouse in our minds. As to the necessary energy parts to create a whole mouse, there is an order of progression with how energy should be arranged in any creation. Dr. N, so the test is the proper steps in creating a mouse? Yes, but actually, this is a test of speed. The secret of efficiency in creation training is rapid conceptualization, knowing which part of the animal to start with first. Then you tackle the amount of energy to be applied. Dr. N, this sounds difficult. With a big grin, it's easy. Trinity should have picked a more complex creature. Dr. N, doggedly, well, it seems to me that Trinity knows what he is doing. I don't see. Cuts me off with gales of laughter, and I ask, what is going on? Karel has just winked at me and opened his desktop, and I see a white mouse scurrying out. Dr. N, meaning he is getting ahead of the assignment? Yes, and showing off. Dr. N, is Trinity aware of all this? Still laughing. Of course, he misses nothing. He just stops and says, all right, let's all do this quickly if you are so ready to begin. Dr. N, then what happens? There are mice running all over the room. Giggles, I put larger than normally is on mine just for fun to liven things up even more. I will close this section with a more serious case example of group energy usage. It represents a type of lesson I have not reported on before. Case 36 involves an inner circle of 3 companions who wish to help a 4th member who has just incarnated on Earth. Unlike the higher level of soul capability in the previous case, these souls are part of a learning group that has recently entered level 2. Case 36. Dr. N, as your mind visualizes all the meaningful activities going on in your study group, please take me to a significant exercise and explain what you are doing. S. Long pause. Oh. You want that? Well, my 2 friends and I are doing our best to help Khalid with positive energy after he entered the body of a baby. We want this to work because soon we are all going to follow him into life. Dr. N, let's go slowly here. What exactly are the 3 of you doing at this moment? S. Takes a deep breath. We are sitting together in a circle. Our teacher is in back of us directing things. We are sending a united beam of energy down into the mind of Khalid's child. He has just arrived and, well, I don't want to violate confidences, but he is not having an easy time. Dr. N, I see. Well, perhaps talking about it might clarify things. Don't you think it would be all right to discuss what you are doing a little further? S. I guess so. I don't see the harm. Dr. N, gently, tell me what month after conception did Khalid join the baby? S. In the 4th month. Pauses and then adds, but we started to help Khalid in his 6th month. It is such hard work to continue to the 9th month. Dr. N, I can understand theta, the necessary concentration and all. Pause. Tell me why Khalid needs help from the 3 of you. S. We are trying to send him encouraging energy shaped in such a way to assist Khalid in making a better adjustment to the temperament of this child. When you join with a baby, it should be like placing your hand into a glove which is the exact size for you and the child. Khalid's glove is not fitting well this time. Dr. N, does this knowledge come as a surprise to you and your teacher? S. Not really. You see, Khalid is a quiet soul, peaceful, and this baby has a restless, aggressive mind, and the mesh is difficult for Khalid, even though he knew what to expect. Dr. N, are you saying he wanted a certain kind of challenge before this baby was chosen? S. Yes, he knew he needed to learn to cope with this sort of body, because he has had trouble before with not being able to control aggression. Dr. N, is this child going to be a hostile person? Perhaps one with few inhibitions, emotional conflicts and so forth. S. Laughs. You got it out, that's my older brother. Dr. N, in your current life, you mean? S. Yes. Dr. N, what roles will the other 2 souls you are working with at the moment assume in Khalid's life, besides yourself? S. Zinin is his wife and Mons, his best friend. Dr. N, sounds like a good support team. Can you explain a bit more why Khalid needs this sort of type of personality in a body? S. Well, Khalid is very thoughtful. He ponders a lot and is tentative. He doesn't jump into situations. It was felt this body would help him expand his capabilities and assist the child, too. Dr. N, was Kuliday's last life a problem? S. Shrugs. Problems. The same sort of body. He was caught up in obsessions and addictions. Little control. He abused Zinim too. Dr. N, then fear. S. Breaking in. We really studied that last life. Reviewing everything. Over and over. Kuliday wanted another chance in the same kind of body. He asked Zinin if she would be his wife again and she agreed. Subject begins laughing. Dr. N, what amuses you? S. Only this time I'm going along as his younger brother to help keep him in line with a very strong body. Dr. N, let's finish with your current energy beam exercise. Explain how you and your two companions use your energy in helping Kuliday. S. Long pause. The alignments of Kuliday's energy and that of the baby are scattered. Dr. N, the baby has scattered emotional energy and Kuliday is having trouble moving with that. S. Yes. Dr. N, does this involve the patterns of electrical impulses from the brain, or what? S. Pause. Yes, the thought processes from nerve endings, stops, and then continues. We are trying to help Kuliday in tracking this. Dr. N, is the baby resisting Kuliday as an intruder? S. No. I don't think so. Laughs, but Kuliday thinks he got another primitive brain in some respects. Dr. N, where in the baby's body is your combined energy beam going? S. We are being directed to work up from the base of the skull, starting at the back of the neck. Dr. N, I bring client into the past tense. Were you successful in this exercise? S. I think we did help Kuliday, especially in the beginning. Laughs. Again, but my brother is still a headstrong person in this life. Additional illustrations of soul group interaction will be cited in later chapters. In Chapter 9, under the section describing the body-soul partnership, I will go into more detail about the physiological aspects of our struggle with the primitive side of the human mind mentioned in the last case. The next chapter is devoted to the higher spiritual assistance we receive as an adjunct to soul study groups. The psychological ramifications of future life choices actually start with our first orientation upon returning to the spirit world. Ideas involving past performance and future expectations are brought into sharper focus with the soul's first council meeting. The Council of Elders. Human fear of judgment and punishment. OT long after souls return to their spirit groups they are called before a gathering of wise beings, a step or two above our guides. These ascended masters are the most advanced identifiable entities my still incarnating clients see in the spirit world. They give them different names such as the Olden Ones, the Sacred Masters, the Venerables, and pragmatic titles like the Examiners or the Committee. The two most common names I hear to describe these highly evolved masters are Council and Elders, so I use these designations to describe this body. Because the Council of Elders does represent authority in the spirit world, there are people at my lectures who immediately become suspicious when I talk about robed beings who wish to question souls about their past life performance. One man in Toronto couldn't contain himself and loudly proclaimed to everyone in the audience, "Aha, I knew it. A courtroom, judges, punishment. Where does this fear and cynicism about the afterlife come from in the minds of so many people? Religious institutions, civil courts and military tribunals give us codes of morality and justice which impact the conduct of millions. There is crime and punishment in cultural traditions of harsh judgment for human transgressions that have been with us since our tribal days. The positive effects of a code of behavior and ethics connected to all religions down through history have been enormous. It has been argued that fear of divine retribution is what keeps the masses at bay with better conduct than they would otherwise have. Nevertheless, I feel there is a downside to any religious doctrine that creates personal anguish over facing a harsh final authority and maleficent spirits after death. Organized religions have only been with us within the last 5,000 years. Anthropologists tell us that in the millennia before primal people were naturists who believed all animate and inanimate things had good and bad spirits. In this respect, the old tribal practices were not so different from the idolatry of historical religions. Many gods of old were wrathful and unforgiving while others were benevolent and helpful. Human beings have always been uneasy about forces beyond their control, particularly with divinities who might rule their lives after death. Since fears about survival have always been a part of our lives, it follows that human beings would find death to be the ultimate danger. Throughout our long history, the brutality of life meant that judgment, punishment and suffering would likely continue in some way after death. Many cultures around the world have fostered these beliefs for their own purposes. People were led to believe that all souls, good and bad, would pass through a dark underworld of danger and trial right after death. In the West, purgatory has long been pictured as a lonely way station for souls trapped between heaven and hell. In recent decades, the non-evangelical churches have a more liberal definition of purgatory as a state of isolation for the purification of sins and imperfections before the soul can enter heaven. With Eastern philosophy, especially among the canons of Hinduism and the Mahayana-Buddhist sects, there has been a long tradition of spiritual prisons of lower, defiled planes of existence, which is also being liberalized. This concept is another reason why I am against the use of concentric circle imagery of multiple astral planes as a map for describing soul travel after death. Historically, they were designed to show multi-purgatorial cells in an underworld of judges, courts and demons. Seekers of truth who turn to the ancient metaphysical traditions of the East find a confusing mix of superstitions, just as with Western theology. While reincarnation has long been embraced by the East, there has been the retention of the doctrine of transmigration. In my travels through India, I found transmigration to be an intimidating concept, which has been used to control behavior. Under this credo, a wide variety of sins are met with the very real possibility of the soul being transmigrated back to a lower subhuman form of life in its next cycle of existence. In my research, I have found no evidence to support transmigration of souls. My subjects indicate the soul energy of different forms of life on Earth do not appear to intermingle their energy in the spirit world. For me, the intimidation and fear transmigration engenders is a coercion of karmic justice. I have found the souls of humans on other worlds in prior incarnations to be in host bodies slightly more or less intelligent than our own species. I have never had a client assigned to another world where they were not the most dominant intelligence on that particular planet. This is by design. Rather than stages of punishment, we go through stages of self-enlightenment. Yet large segments of human society are unable to shake off the nagging feeling, built over thousands of years of cultural conditioning, that judgment and punishment must exist in some form in the afterlife as it does on Earth. Maybe it won't be a hell with torture by the forces of darkness, but it's something unpleasant. It is my hope that what I have to say in this chapter will bring comfort to people inclined to be fearful about the possibility of punishment after death. On the other hand, there will be those who feel accountability to a council of elders may not be all that comfortable either. The Epicureanists of this world are those devoted solely to uninhibited pleasure in life while paying little attention to the plight of others. I might also not be happy with this chapter. Neither will the iconoclasts, who are opposed to authority of any kind, moral or otherwise. The spirit world is a place of order, and the Council of Elders exemplifies justice. They are not the ultimate source of divine authority, but they appear to represent the last station of beings responsible for souls still incarnating on earth. These wise beings have great compassion for human weakness, and they demonstrate infinite patience with our faults. We will be given many second chances in future lives. They won't be lives of easy karmic choices, otherwise we would learn nothing by coming to Earth. However, the risks of life and sanity on this planet are not designed to cause us any further pain after death. The setting for soul evaluation. My subjects state they appear before their council right after an incarnation, and many report they will visit them a second time just before a birth. Of the two assemblages, the first seems to have the most impact on the soul. During this meeting, the major choices we made in the life just lived are reviewed with us. Behavior and accountability for our actions at important forks in our karmic path are evaluated carefully. At the first conference we are acutely aware of our mistakes, especially if we have hurt others. If there is to be a second visit as the time draws close for reincarnation, it is more relaxed with discussions centering around potential life choices, opportunities and expectations for the future. Our guides notify us when it is time to go before the council, and usually they will escort us to the chambers of these ascended masters. To the average client, guides don't appear to play a large role at these hearings. However, when a more advanced soul tells me they go to this meeting alone, it is not unusual for them to see their guide sitting on the council while they are there. When our guides do appear with us in front of the council, they are rather quiet. This is because behind the scene discussions about our last life have already taken place between guides and council members. As our primary teacher and advocate, guides may want to interject a thought for our clarification, or interpret some concept for us if they think we are confused at any point during the proceedings. It is my feeling that guides do far more at these hearings than many of my clients realize. The descriptions about the form and procedure of council meetings are very consistent among all hypnosis subjects. When I begin this part of a client's session, my usual approach is to ask them, what happens when the time arrives to go before a group of wise beings? Here is an example of a typical response. The time of my expectation has arrived. I am to see the holy ones. My guide, Lionel, comes and escorts me from my cluster group down a long corridor past other classrooms. We move into another area with a larger hallway that is lined with marble columns. The walls are textured with what looks to be frosted glass panels of many colors. I hear soft choir music and string instruments. The light is a subdued, golden tone. Everything is so relaxing, even sensual, but I am a little apprehensive. We come to an atrium filled with beautiful plants and a bubbling fountain of water. This is the waiting area. After a few moments, Lionel takes me into a round room with a high domed ceiling. There are rays of light shining down. The holy ones are seated at a long crescent-shaped table. I move to the center of the room in front of the table while Lionel stands behind me to my left. When one first heard about the council meetings, I wondered why it was necessary for them to be seen in any sort of authoritarian setting. Why not a simple countryside scene if they are so full of benevolence? While the younger souls told me that this setting was right and proper for their examinations, the older souls explained that there was a major reason for a domed enclosure. With this design, a higher presence effectively focuses its light energy on the entire proceedings from above. I will discuss the powerful impact of this presence later in this chapter. A great majority of my subjects visualize a dome design for the chamber of the Council of Elders, as shown in Figure 8. They see the chamber structure as a manifestation of a holy place on earth. This celestial shell of compassion, as one client called his council chamber, is symbolic of temples, mosques, synagogues and churches. Figure 8 shows the central table, D, which is usually long in front and may curve around at the edges to accommodate larger numbers of elders. Some clients report that they see this table on a slightly raised dais just above eye level. I have learned these nuances in setting relate to what the soul feels is necessary for a particular meeting to be most effective for them. If a soul sees its counsel in more of an authority mode, there might be reasons for this which I will then probe with the client about the life just lived. Subjects who are regressed to the spirit world do not readily volunteer details about the scope of a specific inquiry from the elders. They must feel comfortable that the hypnosis facilitator knows their way around the council chamber. On an unconscious level, this confidence in the spiritual reactionist seems to give them mental permission to speak about their sacred memories. This is the reason why my research into human memory of the spirit world took so many years. It was like fitting the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together. Small pieces of information about the spirit world led to larger implications which would never have occurred to me to ask about in a whole context. For instance, the reason behind a raised dais in the council chamber was one small detail that expanded into a larger meaning. Another was the position of a client's guide, particularly at the first hearing. As can be seen in Figure 8, the position of the guide, C, in this illustration, is on the left. For a long time I did not understand why guides were usually positioned behind and to the left of most of my clients. Being questioned if the soul has two guides, occasionally the junior guide will enter the room and stand on the right side. Most of the time, we have just our senior guide in attendance, and only a low percentage of my subjects tell me this guide stands on the right. Whenever I asked Why this was so, I received rather vague answers such as, "Oh, it is less restrictive," or "It is customary for our communication," or "We all stand in certain places out of respect." For a long time I simply stopped asking this question. Then came the day when I was working with a very perceptive, advanced subject who told me about the importance of distinguishing all council communication. I revived my question about guide position, and received this answer. Figure 8, the council chamber. A typical structural design where elders meet souls. This spacious room appears to most people as a large rotunda with a dome ceiling. Souls enter the chamber at the end of hallway, or from an alcove. The soul is positioned in the center, B, with their guide in back, usually on the left, C. The elders generally sit at a long crescent-shaped table, D, in front of the soul. The table may appear to be rectangular. Case 37. Dr. N. Why is your guide standing behind you on the left? S. Laughs, don't you know? With most human bodies the right side of the head is not as predominant as the left. Dr. N. What does that have to do with his position? S. The left side right side thing. Not in sync. Dr. N. Are you talking about an imbalance between the left and right brain hemispheres in humans? S. Yes, my problem and that of many others recently returned from ATA is a slight weakness of energy reception on our left side. It doesn't last too long. Dr. N. And, as you stand in front of the council, you are still feeling the effects of your human body. You still have that physical imprint with you? S. Yeah, that's what I am telling you. We don't shake off these effects. By the time of our first council meeting, it seems like only a few hours since my death. It takes a while for us to get rid of the density of the physical body, the constrictions of it, before we are completely free. This is one reason why I don't need Jerome guide so much at the second meeting. Dr. N. Because? S. By then, we are sending and receiving telepathic communication more efficiently. Dr. N. Please explain to me what Jerome actually does to help you by standing on your left side. S. In most humans the left side is more rigid than the right. Jerome assists in the energy reception coming into my right side from the council by blocking thoughts which might escape out the left. Dr. N. Are you saying your energy aura is like a sieve? S. Laughs, sometimes it seems like it on the left. By serving as a blocking agent for thoughts which might escape, he serves as a backboard, bouncing thought waves back into me for better retention. This assists in my comprehension. Dr. N. Do you think he adds his own thoughts to this process? S. Sure he does. He wants it all to penetrate and stay with me. Subsequent questioning with other clients confirmed the backboard effect Case 37 told me about. At the beginning of their incarnations, while souls are learning to utilize unique and complex circuit patterns, they find that most human brains are not balanced between the right and left hemispheres. I am told that no two host bodies are the same in the way our brain hemispheres are linked to process critical judgment, creativity and language communication. This is a primary reason why the wiser souls join the fetus of the new body early rather than late in a mother's term. Past life regression therapists work with the physical body imprints of former lives that may be disabling to their client's current body. Typically, these people come to us after traditional medicine has not given them relief. For example, a physical problem may be referred discomfort from a violent past life death. Part of our job is to deprogram these carryovers whenever they become debilitating to the client. In Chapter 4, we saw how body imprints also affect souls who cross back into the spirit world with physical energy damage. I must say that before Case 37 I never imagined a human body imprint could affect communication at council meetings. I was aware that during the course of these hearings, council members might communicate with each other in a rapid pitch of high and low vibrations. The average soul misses most of this sort of intercommunication between elders. The scrambling effect here is apparently intentional. I think it is safe to conclude that any conversation at council meetings requiring interpretation is usually handled by our guides. I have a rather unorthodox but effective procedure for a spiritual regressionist to use that relates to communication and the council. When I am working with a subject in front of their council, I frequently tell them to ask the elders and attending guide if they know my spirit guide. The client usually answers in the affirmative, saying something to the effect that all masters know each other in the spirit world. One will then follow up with a question about why the client thinks these masters, their guide, and my guide conspired to bring them to my office on this particular day. The answers can be very revealing since my clients feel synchronicity is at work. Within this process of hypnosis methodology, more often than not a subject will remark, "You know, I see your guide suspended over your left shoulder helping you and laughing at your efforts to acquire more information about the spirit world than you need to know." Souls who come before their respective councils have been debriefed during orientation sessions with their guides. However, it is in front of the council where souls feel most vulnerable about their past performance. The object of council meetings is not to demean the souls who come before them or to punish them for their shortcomings. The purpose of the elders is to question the soul in order to help them achieve their goals in the next lifetime. Every soul has an awareness of the inquiry format for their life review, although they know that no two council visits will be the same. At the meetings for the younger souls, I have noticed both guides and council members are especially indulgent and solicitous. During my early research on council meetings, one learned that directed questioning by these spiritual masters toward my subjects was both firm and benevolent at the same time. I'll admit that when I initially heard about these hearings there were doubts in my mind. I felt that if a soul was summoned to appear before a body of higher beings, there were going to be certain punitive aspects to a karmic review. This was due to my own cultural conditioning. Finally, I came to the realization that going before a council has many facets. The elders are like loving but firm parents, managing directors, encouraging teachers and behavioral counselors all rolled into one. What souls feel for their counsel is reverence. Actually, souls themselves are their own severest critics. I find evaluations by our soul group companions to be far more acerbic than any council elder, although our peers do lace their criticism with humor. During the time when souls are moving toward the space where their council is waiting, there are mixed reactions. I have heard subjects say they are looking forward to seeing the elders to get a higher perspective on their progress. Others are apprehensive that this soon passes once the proceedings begin. The elders have a way of making the souls who come before them feel welcome almost at once. One of the most obvious differences between a courtroom on earth and a spiritual gathering of Grand Masters is the fact that everyone in the chamber is telepathic. Thus, all in attendance know the whole truth about every aspect of our conduct and the choices we made in the last life. Deception is impossible. There is no need for rules of evidence, defense attorneys or juries. So that they can properly plan for our future, the elders want to make sure that we totally understand the consequences of our actions, particularly toward others. I hear elders ask us how we learn about major episodes in our life and our courses of action. Desirable actions and those that were counterproductive are discussed openly with us without acrimony or finger pointing. Regardless of the number of times we continue to make the same mistakes, our council has enormous patience with us. We have much less patience with ourselves. I believe if the councils of all the souls from Earth I have worked with were not so indulgent, the average soul would simply give up and not come back. Souls have this right of refusal to return to Earth. The elders probe for answers of how we think our host body served or hindered development. The council is already considering our next potential body and future environment. They wish to know how we feel about another incarnation. Many subjects have the sense that their council has not yet made up their minds about future lives for us. Nothing about this meeting appears to be rubber-stamped. Our intent in life is of utmost importance at council meetings. The elders know all about us before we appear, but during the deliberations, how our soul-mind interfaced with the human brain is carefully analyzed. They know our past record with other host bodies. This includes the control, or lack of it, we exercised over the baser natures of negative emotions of bodies on Earth. Compulsions, illusions and attachments are never offered as excuses by souls for their conduct. I am not saying souls don't complain about their difficulties in front of councils. However, rationalizations about life's trials are not substituted for brutal honesty. The council is looking to see if the inner immortal character of our soul maintained its integrity in terms of values, ideals and action during incarnation. They want to know if we were submerged by our host body or did we shine through? Did our soul effectively merge as a partner to the human brain as one harmonious outward human personality? Council members question souls about the use of power. Was our influence positive, or corrupted by the need to dominate others? Were we led by the convictions of others, demonstrating no personal power, or did we make original contributions? The council is not so concerned about how many times we fell down in our progress through life, but whether we had the courage to pick ourselves up and finish strong. Appearance and composition of the council. The word elder is considered appropriate by many clients because the advanced beings who sit on their councils are visualized as elderly men. They are frequently depicted as having bald heads, or white hair and perhaps beards. In questioning people about the gender of these beings, I have come to some conclusions. The high predominance of older males seen on the councils is a cultural stereotype. Wisdom is associated with age and men are seen more often than women because of our long history of male dominance in positions of authority. There are two factors that create these stereotypical images. 1. What is projected to you from the council is intended to impact your own experiences and conceptions as a soul from Earth. 2. Memory. Recall in regression involves an overlaying process. While subjects relive their experiences in front of the council in a pure soul state, they are also communicating to me from their current body with all the cultural influences which exist in life today. We are under the same influences as discarnates when we project a set of facial features from a past life to members of our spirit group. This reflects both our character and mood at the moment, as well as creating a form of instant recognition to souls who might not have seen us in a while. I am certain that regression therapists who perform my sort of work in future years will find as many women as men on these councils. Bear in mind that when I review a council meeting, it is usually between former lives in past centuries. I always take timelines into consideration when evaluating the reality of a spirit world seen in the mind of a client. Having made this statement about gender bias, I must add that most of my advanced clients, along with large numbers of intermediate souls, see their councils as androgynous. An elder may appear as sexless or be of mixed gender, flashing both male and female images to the soul. Nevertheless, since almost all my clients either cannot or will not give me the names of their council members, they tend to call them he rather than she, despite a genderless appearance. Spirit guides, on the other hand, are represented equally as male and female between clients. Returning to Figure 8, the reader will notice that the position of the council table, A, is toward the back of the rotunda. The soul, B, stands directly in the center of the room. Most of my clients say, "We stand out of respect." I'm not sure they have a choice. I have had more advanced souls actually sit at one end of the table with their council, but this is quite uncommon and considered presumptuous by the average soul. When I am told that there is no table and the elders wish my client to join them informally, I know I am working with a highly developed soul who is approaching guide status. The very young soul, who has been to Earth less than 5 times, sees their council differently than all my other subjects, as the following quote illustrates: "There are 4 of us who play a lot. We do silly things when our teacher, Minori, is not around. My friends and I hold hands when it is time to be taken to see 2 important people. We go to a place which has bright colors everywhere. There is a man and woman sitting in 2 backed chairs with big smiles on their faces. They have just finished with a small group of kids who wave at us on their way out. This couple are in their early 30s, I would guess. They could be our parents. They are loving and kind, and beckon us forward. They just ask a few questions on how we are getting along and what we would like to do in our next life. We are told to pay close attention to everything Minri tells us. It's like Christmas in a department store with 2 Santas." The fact that more than one soul would appear before a council meeting is a dead giveaway that my subject is still considered a child soul. I learned that this individual had only been to Earth once before his current life. In my experience, somewhere between the 2nd and 5th life this sort of council scene is altered. One client who had just made such a transition exclaimed, "Oh, how things have changed. This meeting is more formal than last time. I am a little anxious. There is a long table, and I am being asked by 3 older people to describe my progress to them. It's similar to having just finished an exam and now it's time to find out how you scored. The typical client sees between 3 to 7 members on their council. An advanced soul might have from 7 to 12 elders. This is not a hard and fast rule by any means. However, as souls develop and become more complex, they appear to require more specialists on their panels. I do find that less developed souls are frequently unable to differentiate between individual council members, except for their chairperson, and perhaps one other elder at the table. These 2 elders seem to be most engaged with the case, while those elders who are not directly questioning the soul are rather hazy in the background. It strikes me that there is some sort of protocol connected with council seating arrangements. The members arrange themselves in a row with the less active participants located at the ends of the table. Almost always, there is a chairperson seated at the center, directly in front of the soul. This elder is the primary questioner and may also be referred to as a director or moderator. The number of council members who attend these meetings can change each time we see them, depending upon the circumstances of the life just lived and the one to come. Our chairperson, and perhaps 1 or 2 other elders, are normally present over great spans of time between many lives. Another curious aspect of this procedure to me is that members of the same soul group usually go before different councils. I suppose this is due to the different character aspects of each soul and their state of development. My clients are unable to explain why this is so. When I am told by a client a member of their council has just reappeared on the panel after an absence involving a number of lives, or if a new member has appeared, I take notice. A male client told me, after my last life I saw a new female member on my council. She was not unkind, but gently critical of my continued insensitivity to women in my past lives. She is here to help me develop a plan to overcome my tendency to shut women out of my life. This is hindering my development. Apparently, specialists come into our panels at certain times to lend their expertise if we continue to fall into the same ruts. While facing 3 elders, a subject remarked, "Only the director in the center speaks to me. The elder on my left emanates warm, benevolent energy toward me, while the one on the right sends me serenity. It is as if I needed tranquility at this moment because we are talking about my coping with angry emotions in life." Another client of mine explained what had been happening at her recent council meetings in this way. After many of my recent lives, my council has changed from 3 members to 4, then back to 3, then 4. I noticed this 4th member appears to be a bright silver color while the others have deep hues of violet. I called him my counselor for confidence. Invariably, when I see him sitting on my panel, I know I am going to get a lecture on my lack of confidence. He tells me I am a reticent soul, afraid to push myself with others even when I know I'm right. One tell him how fearful I am on earth and he gently explains that when I extend myself I become greatly loved and appreciated. I am afraid of confrontation and lives of adversity. He says, "We never give you more than you can handle. Keep extending yourself. You have much to offer." This subject chose to be a woman of small stature and ordinary features. In her current life, rather than accepting a tempting offer of another body choice as a dazzling beauty. She told me there was the expectation that this silver counselor of confidence would be happy with this added challenge, along with her also accepting a life with parents who belittled and devalued her while she was growing up. One asked this client what single statement from the Silver Council member was most sustaining to her over the last few centuries. She replied, "That which you gain from each difficult life, you gain for all eternity," where our personal guide will review how we prioritized our objectives and analyze each step after a life. Our elders ask more overview type questions. The council just doesn't inquire into our most immediate past life. Lines of questioning follow across the sum of all our lives and cover the larger picture of our progress towards self-fulfillment. The elders wish to explore if we are developing to our potential. I have come to believe that the committee is carefully balanced by certain elders whose character and background have some sort of common ground with the souls who come before them. Sometimes I see a personal affinity between an elder and one of my clients. Individual elders seem to identify with the soul's character, strengths and weaknesses, interests and purposes. Despite what I have just said, I must add that the vast majority of people in hypnosis do not feel really close to the elders on their councils. They have reverence and veneration for them, but not the deep affection they display toward their spiritual guides. This is why the following case is so exceptional. Case 38. Dr. N. Do you see any new faces on your council since the last time you went before them? S. With a sudden gasp, then a deep sigh of pleasure, at last. Renda has come back. Oh, am one glad to see him again. Dr. N. Who is Renda? No, subject is shaking and does not respond. Dr. N. Now, take another deep breath and relax for me so together we can discover what is going on. Where is Renda sitting? S. To the left of center at the table. Still musing, it's been so long. Dr. N. How many Earth years have passed since you last saw Renda? S. Tearfully, after a long pause, some 3,000 years. Dr. N. This must represent a multitude of lives for you. Why has Renda been away so long? I.S. Still tearful, but regaining composure. You don't understand the significance of his coming back on my council. Renda is very old and wise. He is so peaceful. He was with me before my Earth cycles, past lives, had numbered so many. Renda told me I was showing great promise and developing rapidly. I was receiving assignments of importance, and then subject stops, choking up again. Dr. N. Softly, you are doing fine. Please go on and tell me what happened to you. S. After another long pause, I fell from grace. I fell into the traps that so many of us do here. I grew too confident with my power. Assuming positions of authority over others was fun. It didn't matter what kind of body I had. I became self-indulgent and selfish in life after life. Renda warned me about slowing down my progress, and I made promises to him I did not keep. So many lives wasted. I squandered away opportunities and corrupted my knowledge and power. Dr. N. Well, obviously you have turned things around recently, or Renda would not be here. I have been working so hard to improve in the last 500 years. To care about others, to engage in service to others, to feel compassion, and now my reward. Render is back. Subject begins to shake violently and cannot talk. Dr. N. After a break where I do my best to compose this client, what does Render first say to you at the moment you see him after his long absence? He gives me a warm smile and says, "It's good to be working with you again." Dr. N. Just like that. That's it. Nothing else is necessary. I feel the power of his great mind and know that once again he has confidence in my future. Dr. N. What do you say to him? I vow not to slip back again. Render's color was reported as a phosphorescent violet robe. The garment worn by both guides and council members is almost always a robe, sometimes described as a tunic. Spirits don't need clothes any more than they require buildings as places to live in the spirit world. As with so many other images people have of their spiritual life, this too is metaphoric. As pure energy, elders have deep shades of purple, but the colors of their robes may be different. The symbolism of wearing robes confers dignity, honor, and the sense of history in the minds of people who report on them. People associate robes with the fields of law, academics, and theology in human society. There are many clues a therapist can gain from questioning hypnosis subjects about the colors of the robes worn by each elder on their council. These robes appear for the edification of souls from earth. When I began to gather information about the variety of robe colors, I assumed that these differences conferred some sort of status or rank to an elder in the minds of people. During my early investigations into this aspect of the spirit world, I asked questions based upon my faulty assumptions about authority. I found the garments worn by these beings, their seating positions at the table, and the degree of participation by each council member was not hierarchical. White and purple are the most common robe colors seen by my clients. Since they are at opposite ends of the color spectrum, this may seem incongruous. However, as Case 31 explained, white is receptive energy to beginners, while it is also a color of transference or intervention by advanced centers of thought. The white energy of younger souls denotes a process of continual self-cleansing and renewal. For the more advanced, it signifies purity and clarity. The reason white robes are seen so frequently on council members and with guides at the gateway to the spirit world is that here white represents the transmission of knowledge and wisdom. White energy robes, or white as a halo aura on an enlightened being, signifies harmonizing and aligning thought with universal energy. Purple is the color of wisdom and deep understanding. Council members with purple and violet robes reflect their ability to govern the affairs of the souls who come before them with benevolence and love, born out of vast experience. These energy colors reflected on an elder's robe have an idealistic quality of perfection bestowed upon the wearer by my clients. Black robes are never seen, but once in a while an apprehensive subject will call the elders judges when they initially enter the council chamber. Once inside, though, no soul visualizes this meeting space as a courtroom. Hoods, foursquare hats and skull caps, all having an antiquarian flavor, may be seen on the elders. Hoods are usually thrown back from the head, which is less ominous to the viewer. These visualizations remind me of religious orders, such as the Dominicans, who wear hoods with white robes. These earthly influences of robes and tunics made out of cloth go back a long way in our history. The garments and other accoutrements reported by my subjects on elders are trappings which engender respect and reverence to wise beings who, like oracles, interpret events in a soul's existence. The next case is a level-I soul who has just entered the council chamber after his last life ended in 1937. Case 39. Dr. N. How many elders do you have on your council? S. I prefer to call them the wise ones. There are 6 sitting at the table. Dr. N. Explain to me what each wise one is wearing and give me your impressions of what you see. S. Pause. Well, the one in the center is wearing a purple robe and the others are white mixed with purple. Ah! Except the one on the far right. She is mostly white with a touch of yellow. She is more animated toward me than the others. Dr. N. What do all these colors mean to you? S. It kind of depends upon the life I have just lived. The wise one in white on the right wants me to see things more clearly. The yellow-robed person has something to do with my giving and receiving support. But I don't know what that has to do with me right now. I remember someone else was in her place 2 lives ago who wore a crimson robe. That was when I returned home to the spirit world after being physically crippled. Dr. N. What did you think of when you saw her red robe 2 lives ago? S. Its physical body-oriented color. The crimson one dealt with karmic influences involving that body. I was really worn down and angry after that life. There was a wise one wearing green then, too, which I don't see now. Dr. N. Why green? S. They are skilled at healing, mental and physical. Dr. N. And you usually see all these colors in the robes worn by the wise ones? S. As a matter of fact, no. Mostly, I see them all wearing about the same purple color tones. This time I am supposed to be getting some special messages. Dr. N. Let's talk about the purple robe being in the middle. Do you think this is someone important? S. Laughs at me. Hey, they are all important. Dr. N. Okay, someone more significant to you than the others. S. Yeah, he's the leader. He sort of directs things. Dr. N. Why is that, do you think? S. Because the others seem to defer to him. He conducts things. Mostly, the others seem to speak through him. Dr. N. Do you know his name? S. Laughs. No way. We don't circulate in the same social circle around here. Dr. N. How does the meeting open for you? S. The director says to me, welcome, we are glad to have you with us again. Dr. N. What do you say? S. Thank you, a circumflex, but I'm thinking, I hope this goes all right. Dr. N. What kind of thoughts do you pick up then from the chairman, who seems to be running things? S. He doesn't want me to feel the wise ones are so superior that I can't talk to them. This meeting is for me. Then he says, how do you feel about your progress since we saw you last? Did you learn anything new we can talk about? Pause. This is the way these meetings open. They want to hear what I have to say. Dr. N. Do you feel more relaxed now? S. Yeah. Dr. N. Give me an idea of how things proceed from here. S. Pause. We start with what I did right. I had a successful company, which employed many people in my past life. I'm turning this over in my mind. I want to make a good impression by telling them about my charity contributions, say, my good acts. Pause. Then things drift into the way I ran my company. My inability to avoid conflicts, sad disagreements and anger with my employees. Subject grows agitated. It's so frustrating. And I'm working on this. But then stops. Dr. N, please go on. Does your guide assist you in any way with this? S. My guide Joachim speaks from behind me. He sums up the main parts of my life and my objectives to contribute to society by employing people during the Depression. Dr. N. Sounds good to me. Are you happy with the manner in which Joachim is presenting you to the wise ones? S. Well, yes. He states what I wanted to do and then what actually happened. His tone is even. Joachim does not defend or praise Ma. He simply relates my participation in the events during a bad time in America. Dr. N, do you think of Joachim as your defense attorney? S. Abruptly, no, that's not the way things are here. Dr. N, is Joachim objective in his summation of your light? S. Yeah, but we've hardly started. I'm forming my thoughts about how well I provided for my family, but this kind of gets mixed up with my professional life. I can't get how I treated my employees out of my mind. This really bothers me. Joachim is quiet, no what he doesn't want to interfere with my thoughts. Dr. N, then let's stay focused with the thoughts between you and your Council of Wise Ones. Please continue. S. I'm trying to anticipate their questions. I know I enjoyed accumulating material possessions in my life. They want me to tell them why, and I say that it made me feel valuable as a person, but one stepped on people. Then they bring up similar actions on my part from former lives. And if I feel I am doing better. Dr. N, do you think their thought probes about your past are jeopardizing the summary of your current life in some way? S. No, there is no harsh edge to their questions. I'm okay with this, but now my mind is racing and I think of my charity work again as something I should stress. Then stops. Dr. N, encouraging, you are doing just fine with this, tell me what happens next. S. The wise one in the center. His powerful mind envelops me. Dr. N, what does he communicate to you exactly? S. Slowly, this is what I hear in my mind. Emmanuel, we are not here to judge you, punish you, or to override your thoughts. We want you to look at yourself through our eyes, if you can. That means to forgive yourself. This is the most challenging aspect of your time with us, because it is our desire that you accept yourself for who you are with the same unconditional love we have for you. We are here to support you in your work on earth. Toward that end, we would remind you of the bus stop incident. Dr. N, the bus stop incident, what does that mean? S. Pause. I was confused myself when he said it. I look back at Joachim for assistance. Dr. N, explain what happens then, Emmanuel. S. The wise one in the center. His thoughts come to me once more. You do not remember this incident? The woman who you helped One day while she was sitting at the bus stop, I said, "No, I don't." Then, they wait for my memories to kick in and someone sends a picture into my mind. I'm beginning to see. There was a woman. Once. I was walking toward my office with my briefcase. I was in a hurry. Then I heard this woman crying softly to my left. She was sitting at a bus stop next to the sidewalk. It was during the Depression. People were desperate. I stopped. Then on an impulse, I sat down next to her and put my arm around her, trying to comfort her. This was a very unnatural thing for me to do. Pause. My God, is this what they are interested in? I was with this woman for only a few minutes before the bus came. I never saw her again. Dr. N, how do you feel now about the wise one bringing up this incident during your hearing? It's so crazy. An entire lifetime of giving money to charity and they are interested in this. I gave this woman no money, we only talked. As my client and I evaluated this meeting, I reminded him why I thought the smiling female council member on the far right wore a robe of yellow. This might be to acknowledge his spontaneous act of support to a stranger at a bus stop. Less developed souls standing in front of their councils often have entanglements of memory as they purge themselves. While they are self-absorbed, they may miss what is important. Emmanuel felt sorry for the woman at the bus stop. Although he was in a hurry to get to his office, he sat down next to her. His brief, compassionate gesture did not last long. Yet in those moments, I learned that Emmanuel reached her pain, looked into her eyes, and told her she was going to make it through her troubles. Because he was confident she could be strong. She stopped crying and, when her bus came, she stood up and told him she would be all right. Then he hurried off and forgot this brief act of kindness for the rest of his life. The bus stop incident in this case appears to be a small thing when stacked up against a lifetime of other acts. It was not a simple act to the council. As we move through life, there are many gestures between people that are uplifting. They may be so momentary that we are not conscious of them at the time. In the spirit world, nothing is insignificant. No act goes unrecorded. There are no hard and fast rules about the meaning behind every color the elders might choose to show the souls who come before them. For instance, the red robe worn by the council member in the last case related to the need of Emmanuel to sustain the passion for life within a broken host body in a former life. In the next section I will explain the meaning behind other symbols worn by council members. A red robe, or red stone on a medallion or ring displayed by an elder, can have several meanings depending on the setting. Red is the color of passion and intensity, and Emmanuel saw a crimson robe after one of his lives with physical disabilities. However, in another case an elder could display a ruby medallion to denote the need for a soul to have a greater passion for truth that was shown in a former life. The subtle variations of color translation at council meetings are unique to every soul's own perceptions. As one of my subjects said, the wearing apparel of my council shows their mastery over a certain discipline. The colors they display in different forms also relate to the topic under discussion. These represent gifts of awareness to me as I face my council. No elder is greater than the other because each is an aspect of ultimate perfection. Signs and symbols. From the dawn of human history, our race has sought hidden spiritual meanings through interpretations of what we see around us. I remember how I felt climbing into the cave sanctuaries of Paleolithic humans along the Dordogne Valley in France. Inside these caves, one is taken back to the Stone Age by the symbolic art along the walls. They are among the earliest representations we have of human spiritual consciousness. For thousands of years, primal cultures around the world used rock pictures and diagrammed pictographs to represent ideas relating to magic, fertility, sustenance, courage, and death. Indeed, down through the long centuries since that time, we have sought personal revelation through signs from the supernatural. The earliest signs were taken from the animal kingdom, from stones and the elements. We use symbols of all sorts as embodiments of power and instruments of insight and self-development. Ancient cultural attachments to mystic symbolism were often associated with a desire for transfiguration of our higher self over the primitive side of human nature. The rites and symbols of secret mystical societies, such as the Gnostics and Kabbalists, may well represent soul memory on earth and human memory in the spirit world. Perhaps I should not have been surprised to have found emblems with meaningful signs in the spirit world. As with all physical objects visualized by subjects in hypnosis, the emblems they see worn by some elders are grounded in past life experience. Conversely, why shouldn't we carry messages from the council to earth within our soul mind as well? Anthropologists who have studied clay tablets, seal stones, scarabs, and amulets from our past believe that their influence to both wearer and observer went beyond physical life into the realm of disembodied souls. This custom continues today with engraved pendants, rings, and charms. Many people who wear these symbolic talismans believe they protect but are also reminders of personal power and opportunity. The following cases may shed some light on the origins of our feelings about prophetic signs. About half my subjects see medallions hanging around the necks of one or more elders on their council. The other half see no objects at all. Frankly, I have found no correlation between these two groups of clients in any way, including their level of development. When a medallion is seen by people, some 85% of them visualize a circular design. The others may see squares, rectangles, triangles, and star-like designs, some of which are seen in 3 dimensions. All these medallion shapes, in association with the designs on them, are significant and represent the continuity of spirit, both morally and spiritually, to the evolving soul. The medallions typically hang from a chain or sometimes just a cord. Usually the metallic disc is gold, but they can also be silver or bronze. Most clients are focused on only one medallion on the council, which is almost always worn by the chief questioner. This elder is generally positioned directly in front of the soul. Case 40. Dr. N. How many members of your council are sitting in front of you? S. 5. Dr. N. How are they dressed? S. They all have white robes. Dr. N. I want you to look carefully at do you see any of these wise beings wearing anything on their robes? If you don't see anything, fine, don't worry about it, I'm just curious. S. Pause. Well, the one in the center has something around his neck. Dr. N. Please describe what you see. S. I don't know. It's on a chain. Dr. N. What is on a chain? S. Something round, a metal disc. Dr. N. I always ask this question, is it close to the size of a grapefruit, orange, or walnut? S. The usual response, an orange. Dr. N. What color is this ornament? S. Gold. Dr. N. What do you think this gold medallion means? S. The normal response, oh, probably some sort of badge of office, or maybe his particular area of expertise. Dr. N. Really? Do you think it is necessary for council members to wear emblems to signify to each other what their position is or any particular talent they may have? S. Confused, well, I don't know. I mean, how could I know? Dr. N. Let's not give up on this so easily. We might learn something together. S. No answer. Dr. N. Describe what you see on the gold medallion. S. The usual response, one can't see it very well. Dr. N. I want you to move closer so you can see the emblem more clearly. S. Reluctant, I'm not sure I should. Dr. N. Let's look at this logically. If you were not supposed to see the emblem, your chairperson would not allow you to see it. Think about this. Does it make sense that these highly developed beings would openly display adornments on their robes which you are not supposed to see? And why would they need to display them for each other? S. I suppose you're right. Still reluctant, one guess it would be okay for me to move a little closer. Dr. N. Just so you know, talking to me about this is not a violation of confidentiality. Look at the expression on the face of the elder, wearing the emblem. He knows what you are thinking. Tell me what you see. S. A kindly expression. Helpful to me. Dr. N. Then I am sure he would not want you to miss anything pertaining to this meeting. Move forward and tell me what you see on the metal disc. S. Now more confident, one can't make out the writing around the side. It looks like filigreed lace, but on the raised part of the disc in the center I see a big cat with its mouth open. Dr. N. Give me more details about the cat. Is it a house cat? S. More forcefully, no, it's a profile of a mountain lion with a fierce face and large teeth. Dr. N. Anything else? S. With recognition, oh, there is a hand holding a dagger under the lion's neck. Long pause, ah, yes. Dr. N. You know now what this is all about, don't you? S. Quietly, yes, I think I do. It is from my Indian life. Dr. N. We haven't talked about that life. Tell me when and where this life took place and how the big cat fits in. This client, whose spirit name is Juan, proceeded to explain that in 1740 she was a young Indian woman in North America. She was out in the forest one day digging roots with her 2 children. The men of her village were off hunting. Suddenly, she saw a big cat jump out of a tree and move toward the children. One dropped her basket and ran directly at the cat. She said, "There was only time to pull out my stone. Nifa, then he was on top of me. Just before the lion killed me I was able to thrust up deep into his neck. Later the men found me and the lion dead, but the children were safe." When I asked one why she was being shown this emblem of the cat, she said, "To signify I displayed courage here and I must use it more in other lives. I always verify the design of medallion carvings with the post-hypnotic suggestion at the end of my sessions. I have my clients draw me a picture of what they saw. One's visual picture of this event is shown in Figure 9R. Figure 9, a H, medallion designs worn by council members. The depiction of one's hand killing a mountain lion on the medallion was intended to send a strong message of capability and courage. My client came to me because she was fearful of dying at age 39. Because her brother had died 2 years before in his 39th year, while driving recklessly. She just had her 39th birthday and we found there was a tenuous quality about her existence. In the course of our session my subject learned that in the life following her Indian life, she and her 2 children had been abandoned by her trapper husband in a Wyoming cabin during a harsh winter in the 19th century. This husband, who was her brother today, was restless and wanted his freedom from family responsibilities. Thus, this case involved a karmic transference of roles by an unsettled soul in one's spirit group who went from an errant past life husband in the 19th century to a rather wild brother in the 20th. As the trapper's abandoned wife, one told me she did not fight hard enough to save herself and the children by putting on snowshoes, a backpack, and trying to get out to civilization while she still had food. She was afraid, and rationalized that her husband would return before she and the children starved. The council showed one the cat medallion, not only as a counterpoint to the lack of resolve in the Wyoming life but also for her fearfulness today. I'm glad one saw the contemporary message of this symbol of courage in our session because the soul. These designs are not drawn to scale. Souls see them in different sizes and colors, but they are almost always round and hang from an elder's neck. All emblems are illustrated with the usual double circle edge etched with indecipherable linguistic markings. Of her brother had volunteered for the probable short life to test my client again and deal with his own karma of abandoning people. I know it seems odd that these ethereal beings on the council would be seen by souls as having a body of light energy and human shape, wearing robes with ornaments. When I initially detected the medallions I did wonder if they were chains of office. I learned that these pendants and their designs had nothing to do with an elder's status on the council, but everything to do with offering a message of inspiration to the souls who come before them. As with so many aspects of the spirit world, these symbols did not reveal themselves easily to me. In the early stages of my inquiries into medallions, my questions would elicit enigmatic responses to the effect that an emblem's meaning was unfathomable, or that the elder was sitting too far away to make it out. For too long I accepted these explanations. Then I changed tactics. As can be seen from the last case, I now tell subjects that it does not make sense that elders would wear an insignia for personal recognition with each other, since these wise beings already know everything about each other. These medallions have to be law that benefit the soul they are interviewing. They might be changed over time after a karmic lesson is learned. However, some scenes appear not to change at all. Once a person in hypnosis realizes the emblems are not symbols of a secret society belonging only to their particular council, they open up. This allows the client to make the mental distinction between an observer caught up in an event over which they have no control to that of an active participant. Responses improve by giving the client permission to recognize what essentially already belongs to them as a soul. The Therapy one am able to utilize in their current life from this aspect of interlife council meetings is worth the effort. The passages from the next case are unusual because the subject knows the names of 3 council members, all of whom have medallions. The chairman's emblem design is figure 9b. Case 41. Dr. N. As you look more closely at the emblem worn by your chairperson, please describe it to me. S. Drit wears the head of an eagle. It is turned sideways on the gold disc in bold relief. Its beak is wide open. One can see the bird's tongue. Dr. N. Okay, what does all this mean to you? S. Drit is giving me a message to fly high and scream into the silence. Dr. N. Can you tell me more? S. Drit says I must engage with my silence in life. I can't live in my own world all the time. Unless I break out and rise above life's circumstances, I will not progress. Dr. N. And how do you respond to Drit's message? S. I just don't accept this. I tell Drit that there was enough noise by others in my past life. I didn't need to add to it. Dr. N. What does Drit answer? S. He says I could have made the world louder, but better, Rabbi, being more vocal in what I knew to be the truth. Dr. N. You agree with his assessment? S. Pause. I suppose one probably could have participated more to engage others and fought for my convictions. Dr. N. Do you always see the eagle design after your lives? S. No, only when I fall into my old patterns of silence. Sometimes his disc is blank. Dr. N. Are you having trouble with this same issue in your current life? S. Yes, that's why I came to you and why Drit has now reminded me of this lesson. Dr. N. Does anyone else on your council wear an emblem? S. Yes, that would be Tron. He sits to the right of Drit. Dr. N. Please describe the design on Tron's medallion for me. S. He wears an emblem engraved with a cluster of golden grapes. Dr. N. Are you saying the grapes are gold, rather than appearing in their natural colors? S. Shrugs. Yes, they are gold because the disc is that color. The emblems are always metallic. Dr. N. Why is that? S. I'm really not sure. For me, they represent objects that are precious and long-lasting. Dr. N. What does the symbol of a cluster of grapes mean to you? S. Pause. Tron wears the sign of the fruit of life, which can be eaten. R. Absorbed. That is, to grow with knowledge. Dr. N. Why a bunch of grapes rather than, say, an apple? S. The cluster of grapes represents not a single fruit but multiples of the same fruit, to absorb different aspects of the same whole. Dr. N. Would you care to expand on this message by iron? S. That by absorbing this symbol each grape into myself I will grow and flourish from every experience. Dr. N. Do any other members of your council wear emblems? S. Pause. Shy. She wears the emblem of the key as a reminder to open the door of knowledge and by doing so accept the fact that the answers to my problems lie within my abilities to solve them. With case 41, it was the eagle design which had the greatest prominence. Birds on medallions are not unusual. One man told me that his chairperson had an emblem of bird leathers with a thistle in the centre, to remind him of a number of lives in the Highlands of Scotland. He stated, In those lives as a clansman I soared up mountain crags, fighting British oppression for the freedom of my people. A female client saw a swan emblem on an elder, which denoted growth through change. She said, "I am being reminded that at birth, this beautiful creature is awkward and can't fly. This represents my own metamorphosis from an ugly duckling into someone imposing, gayer, productive person in my last series of lives." Occasionally, a fish is seen on a medallion. A client told me that for him, this symbol represented a creature who could swim against the current and still be in harmony with its environment. For some reason, human figures are rarely seen on council emblems. When I do hear of them, I find their symbolic meanings to be intriguing. To illustrate the use of a human figure on a medallion, one refer the reader to figure 9c. This represents the case of a 30-year-old woman called Noreen who came to me because she did not want to live anymore. Her husband had committed suicide some months before and she wanted to follow him. During the session we found out this soulmate had lost his life in a logging accident at age 26 in their previous life together. Couples in life each have their own karmic paths which may involve different issues from each other. However, these issues are frequently intertwined when souls from the same cluster group agree to work together, especially in a marriage. Noreen did not do well as a young widow in her last life, particularly in her refusal to open her heart to anyone else. For the remainder of that life, Noreen was inconsolable and died in bitterness from self-inflicted emotional wounds. Facing her counsel at the end of this past life, she was told by the chairperson, "You didn't let your spirit grow, did you?" Apparently, the same lesson has been presented to Noreen in her current life to see how she will handle it. I want to stress that this was not why her husband committed suicide. One have had cases where a spouse will intentionally choose a body that has a high probability of dying young from a variety of natural causes to allow the surviving spouse to again work through grief in a more healthy fashion. Suicide is not one of these options. Suicide by a physically healthy young person is not a prearranged karmic option for anyone. From my experience, I believe the odds are that if Noreen's husband had not committed suicide, he probably would have died young from some sort of accident. At the time of our meeting, my client believed it was not possible to go on without the man she loved. Her extreme despondency also carried feelings of guilt that somehow she might have been responsible, although her husband's suicide note carried just the opposite message. One feel that taking this client back to her last council meeting and viewing once again the medallion she saw is making a difference in her life today. Case 42. Dr. N. One wants you to tell me exactly what design you see on the chairman's medallion. The first thing I see is an animal. A deer. No, I think it is a gazelle. It is jumping in mid-flight. Dr. N. Good. And do you see anything else you can talk about? Pause. There is a human on its back. This really stands out boldly in the center. Dr. N. I see. Is it similar to a bas-relief carving? Yes, the gazelle and human figure turned sideways to me. You know, like I'm watching them from an angle as they race across a plain. The human is faceless, but has long hair and the delicate body of a woman. The one leg I can see is bent. She is riding. One arm is raised, holding up a torch. Dr. N. A shift to present time, and then the command, all right, what I want you to do is rediscover the meaning of what you are seeing. It is no accident that we are here today discussing this emblem together. It represents something you need to remember. You are a young widow for the second time in 2 successive lives. Ask for assistance from your guide if necessary. After a long pause, she responds tearfully, I know the meaning. The human is me and I am riding east into the sunrise. The direction signifies the dawn of a new day. This animal would normally never trust a human to be near it, much less ride on its back. The gazelle trusts me and I must trust myself to go where the animal takes me because we must travel swiftly. Dr. N. And why must you travel swiftly? After some prompting from me and few false starts, because in life there is danger. Parts of this danger lie within us, our weakness, the way we sabotage, and this prevents us from reaching a destination. It is easy to get bogged down. Dr. N. Are you saying the gazelle represents a liberating force? Yes, I must have the courage and strength to continue on with my life with the greatest sense of purpose. The gazelle also represents freedom to conquer fear and have faith in myself. Dr. N. What about the torch you are carrying on the emblem? Softly, always. The light of knowledge. Our search for wisdom. This flame is never extinguished or made ineffective by shadows. Dr. N. Do you see anything else on the pendant? Still in a state of reverie. Oh, it is not important to me, one think. I am unable to read the Greek letters within the circle around the edge. Unfortunately, one must report that none of my subjects who see medallions can decipher the strange symbols between the 2 outer rings near the edge. The secret writing remains a mystery in my research, and I have reluctantly come to the conclusion this is one feature of the emblems that my clients and I are not supposed to know about. One should also add that much of what souls see and hear at their council meetings cannot be recreated in my office. Over the years of my work, I have come to expect that people in hypnosis cannot adequately explain all that happens in their spiritual lives because of human limitations in communication and translations which must be processed through the human brain. My subjects do not know why. They cannot decipher the squiggles on medallions. They refer to them as hieroglyphics, cuneiform writing, runes and even mathematical symbols. The script does not seem to be translatable. It could be pictorial or ideogrammic. Perhaps it is an unspoken spiritual language. I suspect the same types of symbols appear on the life books in spiritual libraries, such as the Greek pi symbol on the front of the book, described by Case 30. While the life books are very personal and undoubtedly used as a chronicle of the soul's past by their guides and councils, the writing around the edges of an elder's medallion may have nothing to do with the soul. I have come to the conclusion that if my subjects were supposed to know about this writing while in a trance state, their spiritual guides would assist them, regardless of whether the symbolic marks they see represent sounds, ideas or words of some sort. There may be a good reason why people cannot translate them, which has nothing to do with the client. One had this to say, I think. I'm not supposed to understand their meaning because this is a message to my elder from a higher source. Maybe this is his lesson. wielded he must decipher for his own goals. I divide what is seen on council emblems into two general categories. The first involves living or natural objects. These symbols could also include minerals, such as gemstones. The second category is the geometric designs, such as circles and straight line drawings. Gemstones may appear on both types of medallions. Council medallions are symbolic of pain and purpose, triumphs and shortcomings of the souls who go before them. The colors of the gemstones presented to the soul relate to both the elder presenting them and also to the soul observer. The general design of a medallion involves soul attributes, accomplishments, and goals. Like the oracles of old, the elders may show a sign as a warning of impending trouble if what we strive for in life is set aside. The case examples that follow are of clients who saw geometric designs and gemstones on their council emblems. The deciphering of line drawings in geometric designs is not quite as readily discernible as with objects of nature, which include gemstones. There are cultures, such as in Japan, where personal emblems involving line drawings have heraldic overtones. In the Orient, these family symbols worn on clothing could be of natural objects or geometric designs to identify members of a specific clan. As opposed to Japanese clan traditions, members of a soul group would not likely see exactly the same emblem displayed by their respective councils. I find the meaning behind swirl designs on geometric emblems to be particularly intriguing. There is a universal aspect to some of them, such as with the next design listed under figure 9D. I have personally seen minor variations of this swirl design on rocks in such diverse locations as Europe, North Africa, Australia and in the deserts of North America. Many archaeologists call it the life source design. When I asked the subject who saw the design in figure 9D about its meaning at a council meeting, I was told, the councilwoman who wears the swirl design is reminding me theta starting from within the core of the spirit world how we spiral outward in development and will someday return to the source of our origins. When a swirl, or concentric circle design, appears on a medallion, the meaning usually relates to a soul's existence within the continuum of life. This sign projects a connotation of spiritual protection as well. In figure 9E the lines are crooked. Here is what the client who saw this design on an elder had to say. There are 4 rippled lines which come from the outer edges of the insignia from different directions. They converge within the circle of unity indented in the center of the disc. The crooked lines represent different pathways toward our goal. They are not straight paths because we are imperfect souls. The lines make the insignia look fractured, just as most every life seems to be disjointed at times. We may take many turns in our travels, but eventually we will all arrive at the same place in the center. I have also been told about celestial signs with star, moon and sun symbols. After a long while of keeping records of all medallion signs, I realized that a crescent moon design was seen more often than other celestial designations. Figures 9E and 9 grams, which I will present in case 44, represent different variations of the crescent moon design in the minds of 2 clients. The sun gives us golden rays of life giving light, while the partial moon is a symbol of growth for me. This silver light represents the forces of my potential. As it grows, so does my higher self. I am an interdimensional traveler between lives. The upside-down moon represents the covering and containment of the spirit world, which has jurisdiction over the earth, our universe, and the dimensions around it. The lines at the top of the emblem are pivotal points of my soul travel, which epitomize grounding me to my work. At the bottom of this emblem is the atom star, the purifier light and connector of universes. Generally, when a client speaks of seeing a crescent moon on a medallion, it represents the increasing power of the soul on earth. My subjects say this is a waxing moon, which is growing as opposed to a waning moon. The sign is often reported to be silver on a gold disc. Straight lines which are looped, angled, horizontal or vertical have countless meanings. For instance, figure 9 grams has 5 straight, angled lines at the top of the medallion. One subject who saw such lines all the way around a disc with no other markings said, "The great star design of these long lines converging down to the center of the disc means I am supported on all sides by the elders on my council. I find it impossible to classify the large variety of signs and symbols I hear about, because each is so individual to the soul. I will offer one more medallion design as figure 9H. This last design combines a geometric pattern with a gemstone. This emblem was reported by a woman whose spiritual name is Uns, who lives in constant pain from fibromyalgia, a disease which inhibits muscle function. Case 43. Dr. N, explain to me what you see on the robe of your chairman. S. Cars wears a gold medallion for my observation. For as long as I can remember, it has had intertwined circlets all around the face of the disc. Dr. N, tell me, Uns, what does this design mean to you? S. The circlets are a reminder to me that each life we live fits together with all our other lives in a continuum toward fulfilling our primary purpose. Dr. N, do you see anything else on the disc worn by cars? S. Joyfully, yes, I have graduated to the emerald stone, which is in the center. Dr. N, and what does this stone mean to you? S. With great satisfaction, it is the stone of the healer. Dr. N, does this have anything to do with your having fibromyalgia in your current life? S. Absolutely. I specifically asked for a body in this life which would be subjected to incurable pain. Dr. N, with surprise in my voice, can you expand upon why you did this? S. I chose this path long ago. I found that whenever I was suffering myself with a malady that generated pain, it helped my healing art. When one is in constant pain, even of low-grade intensity, it presents an opportunity, especially for a healer. Dr. N, to do what? S. To experiment with the vibrational levels of pain with the body. You can learn the fine art of adjustments in energy to relieve sections of pain. By working with my own energy in this way, I learned to assist others more skillfully. Dr. N, what else can you tell me about this experience? S. Being in constant pain keeps one grounded, anchored to the human experience. For pain relief, one must be completely focused. It helps to have confidence that there is a higher purpose in learning to work through pain. I pay a lot of attention to other human beings who suffer from physical infirmities in life. I am able to help those who are receptive to the use of mind control for relief. Dr. N, it seems to me you feel quite proud of having earned the Emerald Stone as presented by Kaz. The stone represents the lineage of the wearer as a healer. It is an embodiment of my personal character and that of Kaz, who has been assigned to monitor the progress of my trials through the ages. It represents my attainment. Dr. N, is it fair for me to assume that you are being shown this stone by a master healer who has the expectation that you will carry on this work to become a teacher specialist yourself? Yes, and Kaz's confidence in me is empowering. Case 43 is what I would call an accelerated soul. Ans has only been incarnating on Earth for some 5,000 years, a very short time, considering her advancement. This is because she never skates in any of her lives. She accepts no healthy bodies, which really astonished me. In her life today, Ans is a science of mind minister who incorporates an eclectic mix of spiritual disciplines. Through her ministry, she assists many people with health problems through the use of guided imagery and meditation. Another aspect of Case 43 that I found interesting was that Ans only began to see the green stone on this medallion in the last 4 or 5 lives. Before that there was an amber stone in the center of the disc, and told me this was the color of nurturing and protection for the weak and sick, which came before the green stone. She called this Gemstone my growing up stone, and added, the green emerald displays my current placement. This indicates to me Ans is a level IV soul. Further questioning revealed something else. Ans said in her early lives on Earth the circlets I loops had no stone at all in the middle of the emblem. I remember a level V who told me, there are 5 jewels on my overseer's emblem, a diamond, ruby, amber, emerald and sapphire, which symbolize my achievements over different levels of development. Thus, it is not the gemstone itself as a mineral of value that has significance on a spiritual medallion, but rather the color of attainment the jewel represents. Gemstone metaphors reported by people in trance offer useful parallels with earthly traditions. The ancients of the Middle East, India and China thought that certain colors represented in gems and semi-precious stones possessed a kind of living personality of their own. For example, the Sumerians believed the wearer of a blue lapis stone had their personal spirit god with them, who must be listened to. Most of my clients see their spirit guides as dark blue light. The ancients also felt that amethyst purple conferred transcendental knowledge and wisdom. This gem color represents level 6 souls and above. Of those hypnosis subjects who do see medallions worn by their council members, some see only gemstones. They may not be shown on a disc. I have had cases where the stone is or glowing balls of colored energy appear on necklaces, rings, or are simply held in an elder's hand and exhibited to the souls who come before them. Essentially, the displaying of certain colors of light energy represents different aspects of our physical and spiritual life. Certain colors emanating from an elder as a halo, robe, or medallion can also indicate an elder's specialty area, which might directly relate to what the soul in front of them hopes eventually to achieve. The hypnosis facilitator must be cautious about their own preconceptions about color meanings. Color interpretations on images presented to the hypnosis client visualizing council meetings won't have quite the same meaning for everyone. Nevertheless, I think it is fair to say that to people in a trance state, signs and symbols presented to them through soul memory relate to the effects of forces over which they wish to exert some control in their current lives. My subjects associate all the medallions I have talked about on their councils with perception and wisdom. Their meanings are intensely personal things, and are displayed with the intention to instruct and motivate souls from Earth to an awareness of self. The impact of viewing these signs and symbols under hypnosis is so compelling with some clients that after their sessions they have ordered duplicates on personal jewelry to remind them of their karmic path. The presence. When you take people into the spirit world, do they seek God? This is a question I am frequently asked about at lectures, and there is no short answer. I can say my subjects do feel the source of their origins all about them in the spirit world. The more advanced explain that all souls will eventually coalesce back into conjunction with the source of purple light. However, is there some place in the spirit world where a being superior to the elders is evident to the still incarnating soul? The answer is yes. At council meetings, during the time we are meeting with the council of elders, there is the overwhelming feeling of an even higher force which is simply called the presence. Many subjects state, this is as close to God as we get. My more advanced clients, who are nearing the end of their regular incarnations, indicate that they don't think the presence is God exactly. To them it is a deified entity or entities with capabilities immensely superior to those on the council. Everyone agrees that the presence is there to assist the work of the council. Typically, people who come to me do not like to use the word God in describing a higher presence, which they feel more than see in the spirit world. They prefer to use such words as source or oversoul because the word God has been too personalized on Earth. As many souls approach the more advanced stages of development, the presence may become pluralized in their minds as a part of the many divine forces in the spirit world with infinite knowledge. They feel this higher force does influence council meetings but might not be the ultimate creator. My subjects see the greatest evidence of the presence at council meetings. Even so, the presence is equated with a larger omnipotent and omnipresent energy force in the spirit world. After reviewing hundreds of case notes describing the presence, I decided to offer a few of them in a series of quotes. In their sessions, each subject speaks of the presence in just a few sentences. I hope the list of quotes I have selected will capture the flavor of what the average soul feels about this aspect of their council meetings. I do not actually see the presence, but feel it as the ultimate energy. It is there for the council, but mostly for me. The elders don't serve as intermediaries between myself and this source of power. I feel a direct connection with the divine purple light. When I am in the council chamber, the presence oversees the elders with its pulsating violet light. Sometimes it turns to a bright silver to calm and purify my mind. The presence is above and in back of the council. Only with difficulty can I look up at this power. I feel its sanctity so strongly that I don't think I should try to look at it directly. During the council meeting, if needed, I could not stay focused on the elders. The council seems to acknowledge the presence without being too deferential to it in such a way as to slow down the proceedings. I think it intended that my council and I pay attention to each other. Still, I have the impression that the magnitude of all this combined intelligent energy is designed just for me at this moment. My guide, the elders, and the presence are keepers of the wisdom behind my experiences. The presence represents a purity of energy which assists the council on my behalf. I believe that the council needs the help of the presence because it has been so long since they themselves incarnated in biological form. The pure wisdom of this energy allows both the council and myself to see more clearly where we all should be going. The brilliance and drawing power of the presence is a calling, an eagerness, directed at everyone in the chamber for all of us to join it someday. It is like a parent, waiting for us to grow up and unite with it in adult understanding. When you stand in the council chamber and feel the presence, it is like a penetrating resonance in your mind. Even my master guide encounters the sense of bliss that I do. I know this is why she really enjoys coming to council meetings with me. It is a fountainhead of love and understanding. When my time with the council is over and I leave the presence, there is such a yearning to go back and be close to it once more. People have asked me if I have ever had anyone who could shed some light on what it is like to be a council member and be closer to the presence. I have had very few subjects with such experience who are in transition from level V. However, one individual stands out in my mind. Shinra was one of the most advanced clients I have ever had. No one has taken me closer to the presence than this soul. Shinra trained in another dimension before coming to Earth several thousand years ago. Today, this client is an acupuncturist who practices a variety of healing arts. The medallion worn by Shinra's council chairman is shown in Figure 9 grams. Further details about the interdimensional travel capabilities of souls will be examined with the Explorer Soul specialists in Chapter 8.